Now streaming on Netflix, a far, far better movie than you would expect from the people who gave us Space Jam: A New Legacy. It's They Cloned Tyrone.
They're very different movies.
Very.
Yes. So this is a feature film directing debut from Juel Taylor. He and his longtime writing partner, Tony Rettenmaier, co-wrote this, and they also co-wrote Space Jam. And it's this really fascinating kind of amalgamation of genres and influences and Easter eggs, but it all comes together into this very singular and very creative film.
Excuse me, kind sir, but if you could point me to the elevator that leads down to the freaky laboratory, I'll be out your atmosphere.
John Boyega stars as a low-level drug dealer named Fontaine. This takes place in an unnamed city in an unnamed state. It looks like it's the South, the predominantly Black South, and weird things start happening, right? It's got a bit of a Groundhog Day feel to it at first, but there's something a little bit off about this place. The Glen has like a liquor store and a motel, and there are prostitutes, and, you know, danger lurks everywhere. But then there's something even beyond that that feels a little bit off. Teyonah Parris plays a sex worker named Yo-Yo, and she gets involved in these weird goings-on. She works for Jamie Foxx as a guy named Slick Charles. And people just start disappearing, right? And the ones who remain aren't quite themselves. I'm trying really hard to be vague. I don't really want to say what's really happening here because there's so much to discover. But I will say that it is an exploration of racial stereotypes. There are knowingly all kinds of, you know, details here as far as various stereotypical depiction of Blacks in film. In pop culture in general. It's very knowing in the way that they depict it and then upend it.
Yes.
Use those notions to explore what's really happening in society. So whether it's the consumption of fried chicken or certain songs on the radio or like hair cream or, you know, Slick Charles is very proud of his very flashy clothes that he wears, but they're actually from Goodwill. And like there's an Easter egg involving the jacket that he's wearing. So it's layered upon layered in terms of like musical choices and sound design and production design. But it's these three people who all get together, who have all kind of been on the fringes of society, who are trying to be players and end up becoming, you know, major players in uncovering this conspiracy that's going on in the Glen. It's so funny. It moves so well. It is so weird and so delightful. And they all have such incredible chemistry with each other. And they are each doing something very specific and different, these three main actors, but they mesh together so well. Jamie Foxx is a total hoot in this.
Yes.
Teyonah Parris is just having a blast. She's just adorable, but so much smarter than this character ordinarily is in a movie like this. And then John Boyega is sort of the stoic straight man, like our conduit in the middle of it, who is at the center of investigating what's really happening here. So I never knew where it was going. Like it reminded me of other movies that I don't want to say,
right,
but it finds its own way into its story. It has a lot to say about race and society.
What really impressed me with this movie is that they spend the first 5 minutes or so fooling you into thinking you're seeing a dumber movie than it is, fooling you into thinking that this is like this sort of collection of cliches and characters we've seen before and situations we've seen before. And you're thinking, why are John Boyega and Jamie Foxx and Teyonah Parris in this movie? Like, surely they understand what this is. And then as it goes along, you're like, okay, this is not that. And, you know, and so that shows, I think, a real confidence for a first feature to like sort of lull you into this state of thinking, this is the kind of movie you think I'm getting. Fake. It's actually this other thing. The three central performances are so good.
So fun.
I mean, and I love the fact that not only is Teyonah Parris's character like smarter and more capable than you would expect her to be in a film like this, but she's ultimately the one who's kind of leading the way in a lot of ways. Like she's kind of the alpha of this group in terms of figuring things out and making decisions and cracking codes and whatnot. But all three of them are great. Like Jamie Foxx, you know, it's been a while, I think, since we've seen him in a role that's this meaty. And he's having a blast. John Boyega finds a lot of dimension to this character that isn't immediately apparent. And, you know, it is obviously trafficking in a lot of metaphor, but I think does so successfully, and I think is really provocative and raises a lot of issues that are worth discussing in a way that other films like it have, but I think it carves out its own niche in doing so. We are talking around so much, but this
I
is
know,
going to
it's
be
hard, right?
We're going to post this as a non-spoiler review because we have twisted ourselves in knots to not tell you anything. But anyway, yeah, I thought this movie was great. Constantly kept me guessing, constantly surprising me and like revealing new layers and new details about itself. Yeah, people should absolutely check it out.
For sure. I love Jamie Foxx in this, and it's especially cool to see his performance given that we know he's been going through a lot lately.
Yes.
Personally and health-wise. So to see him so vital, so vibrant, like doing that charismatic thing, like he's so masterful with dialogue, and the dialogue he is given here is so complicated, like such a mouthful, and he just breezes through it like nothing, like it's just walking down the street, and that's so much fun to watch. Like it is, you know, on its surface the stereotype of like the fast talking pimp, but there's so much specificity to his language and to the way that he views the world and the way that he addresses this increasingly bizarre situation that he finds himself in, that it's so much fun and always surprising. The one complaint I have here is I feel like it makes its point, like it stops toward the conclusion to like spell out what it's about. Whereas I think it did a fine job of that just through the interactions of these characters in this society in a way that was pretty clear. And persuasive.
That's fair. It didn't take me out of it, you know, which again, I think this was the same disagreement we had about the America Ferrera speech in Barbie, you know. In the case of Barbie, I've been hearing, this is purely anecdotal, but I think like women tend to say like, yeah, we know this. And men are like, oh, wow, I needed to hear that, you know? And so I think that's, you know, maybe there are people who needed to hear that in this movie, so they have to kind of spell it out a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but I had a really good time, and there's a really cool video out there on YouTube in which Juel Taylor goes through like all of the Easter eggs and all of the layering as far as like the product placement, like the kind of malt liquor that Fontaine goes and gets every day from the liquor store.
Right.
And some sound design that like nobody will perceive. That's really cool.
This movie creates a world in the way that Repo Man does, where it's sort of like recognizable, but also a little like, wait, what? You know, I like the chutzpah of this movie a lot.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. So what's your number then?
I'll say an 8.5. I think this is really strong stuff and funny and just like constantly kept me guessing.
Right. Has a lot to say, but does so in a really entertaining way. Yeah. I'll say 8.3. Okay. So it has been in theaters, but it's also on Netflix. I think it's mainly on Netflix. So you can go and watch it now. And you should. And subscribe if you have not. We'd love to have you hang out with us as we head into the end of summer here and into fall.